Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the weekly Daily. I am here, Ben Dailey, your host. It is Monday, July 24th. I'm a little behind. Had a busy weekend, getting some stuff done. Did a comedy festival. Yesterday was my birthday. Happy birthday, thank you. 35, big 3-5. Just a regular day, a Sunday birthday. You know, a lot of people ask me what I was doing. What are your big plans? What are you going to do? I haven't done anything interesting on my birthday in a long time. Not because I'm like actively trying not to do something fun. I don't know. It just doesn't matter. It's just another day. After 21, there's really after 21 and then maybe on every decade, you're like, I think you should be allowed to do something. But who cares? You know, people are like, you're not going to do anything for your birthday. You're like, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? Sunday afternoon, go to a brewery, tell every waitress and waiter, go, hey, it's my birthday. Look at my ID. Okay, give me a beer, look at my ID. I want you to congratulate me for my birth a long time ago. And I know this is a brewery, but I'd like you to find a cake in the back. So, chocolate, please. I just don't care. I don't know. It's, who cares? Birthdays are for kids. And, I kind of feel the same way about Christmas. I don't care too much about presents at this point. I will say the difference between like Christmas and a birthday is Christmas, it's nice to be with family. I don't care. Presents, those are for kids. Presents, they're nice, but I don't care about that. It's more so just spending time with family and friends. For my birthday, sure, spending time with family and friends, which I haven't done in a lot of recent years, is fine, but it's different. You don't feel the need to do that because Christmas, a lot of people celebrate that. So if you're not with friends and family, and a lot of other people are, then you feel kind of left out or lonely. Whereas your birthday, it's just your birthday. Everybody else is living their lives. So it's not like, oh, but everybody else is celebrating their birthday today. No, they're not. It's a Sunday. They're doing errands. And that's kind of, did I do errands yesterday? I cooked a little bit. Cooked a good old basic meal, some rice and some chicken in the crock pot that got overcooked. 3 hours on low. Okay, I thought I'd Googled it. They said first off, there was wildly different time frames that people mentioned. Some people said 90 minutes, others said 3 to 4 hours. There were some that said 6 to 8 hours to crockpot on low chicken breast. And I did 3 hours. Pretty tough and overcooked. But that's how I usually, I guess, have my chicken. Just tough, overcooked, no salmonella, no E. coli, whatever bacteria is in chicken. Historically, I have made sure it's not there by the time it's going in my mouth. So I had that yesterday. This morning I was very hungry. I didn't eat. I ate like 5 o'clock yesterday, and because the chicken was tough, I don't know. My appetite was not very big. But I was very hungry this morning. I made scrambled eggs, and then I had made sweet potatoes yesterday in the oven, so I ended up throwing those on. But I didn't realize I bought, I guess they're Japanese sweet potatoes. And I don't think I've ever had those before, but those were not orange. They were yellow. So I had yellow sweet potato, Japanese sweet potato, and scrambled eggs. So I just had a plate that looked like yellow. Like if I was 7 years old and you asked me what I had for breakfast, I would say I had yellow. I ate yellow for breakfast this morning. It's funny because we judge a lot of times our food based on the colors. You know, you feel healthy mentally if you have a mixture, if you have like a meat color and then vegetables, some green, and then, maybe rice, which is white, tomato, red, avocado, green, you get kind of a collection. You go, ooh, that's healthy. But when you do something like I was talking about for breakfast, where it's just yellow, that was a scrambled eggs, threw some onion in there, and sweet potato. That's fine. That's healthy. But I looked at it and I was like, dude, might as well be French fries and chicken tenders. You ever eat that? Man, I went to Popeyes one time. I've only been to Popeyes maybe a couple times. But I'll never forget the first time. Because that's, if I'm being honest, that's where my judgment of Popeyes comes from. First time, it was terrible. And now it's embedded in my brain. And you know what? I don't even think it's Popeyes, now that I think of it. What is the, I've just smeared Popeyes for no good reason. And I'm pretty sure it's not Popeyes. Wow. What is it called? Oh, this is going to bug me. There's a place off Hamden where I live, and it's a chicken place, and it's called... I can't think of it. I don't think it's Popeyes. It might be Popeyes, but I think it's another one. Anyways, they have like an orange sauce that has like some pepper in it, and people are like, oh, it's so good. You got to get it. And it was terrible. It was the worst. The meal that they have is literally, it's all brown. It's yellow and brown. All the combos, it's chicken tenders, French fries, Texas toast. And if you pay extra, they'll give you like a little mini cup of coleslaw it's not green. I'll tell you that. It's not the color of cabbage. It's just mayonnaise and then a couple little white shreds of quote unquote cabbage. Man, I cannot believe I can't. It might be Popeyes. Gosh. You know what? I'm going to look it up. And for the three of you that listen to this and next episode, I am going to follow up next week. Talk about it. Confirm. Anyways, whenever you eat like that same color, especially with fried food, you're like, I'm a piece of garbage. This is terrible. But mentally, we feel good if we eat different colors. We feel like it's healthy. Maybe that's the only reason that Neapolitan ice cream is even a thing. Because first off, nobody likes those flavors. Those are terrible. What is it? Sherbet, green, chocolate. I mean, chocolate's fine, but when you're putting it in between sherbet and whatever green, yellow, whatever the colors are, ugh. Dude, you could get Ben and Jerry's and you went with Neapolitan? I mean, look, I'm trying not to judge, but that's some real serial killer vibes, in my opinion. But maybe that's why people do it. They go, the multicolors, it's healthy. You go, it's ice cream, but we're getting variety of colors. So you get that orange. It's like, is it sugar ice cream or is it a sweet potato? That green, is it, what even is green ice cream flavoring? Mint chocolate chip, but there's no chocolate chips in it. Mint? I guess it could be mint, pistachio. You guys fans of pistachios? Who out there, comment if you eat pistachios. I haven't had pistachios in a while. Used to be a fan. I used to get pistachio. I wouldn't get it. My mom would make it occasionally when I was young. Pistachio Jello. Ooh. So it'd be like pistachio flavored, and it would have like little mini pistachios in there to give it like a texture, a crunch. Ooh. That was pretty good. But like I've said before, I'm off the sugar. Zero sugar. Apples are my natural sugar go-to. which I got for the first time in a while. I went to Whole Foods. That's where I've been shopping. It's real expensive, but I'm only buying the healthy organic stuff, so it's a lot of money, but I'm not buying anything else. I'm not eating out. I'm not getting desserts. I'm not getting any of that. So it's actually the money I think is actually less by just eating healthy in that sense. But I usually get Fuji apples, which are kind of my go-to. Honey Crisp, a little too much sugar, natural sugar in there. A Granny Smith, little tart. They're not bad. I just never go for them. My default is I go through, I'm shopping quickly, give me the Fuji. They didn't have them. So I got Gala apples, and they're fine. But they're not, I like Fuji. I don't know who would go Gala. Gala just feels like it feels like the knockoff version of Fuji. They're basically the same, just the texture's a little less crisp, a little more styrofoamy. They're not full styrofoam like if you go to Walmart or get produce at a place that's not good. Boy, those apples, you're like, are these apples? Or is this North Korea and you've filled an apple-shaped item with styrofoam? Because that's what it tastes like sometimes. But I got the Gala apples, peanut butter. That's my go-to dessert. It's been good. I need to get more calories in me. I think I realize that I've been feeling a lot better, but still a little tired and lethargic. And I think I've said this before, but when I'm just eating, for the most part, lunch and dinner, 2 meals a day, and it's just straight like meat, veggies, maybe a rice or quinoa, maybe, and then like maybe cheese and avocado, things like that. I know that those meals are not 1,000 calories each. Honestly, they're probably like 600. So, 1,200 calories a day, especially for what some consider a bodybuilding body type that I have. 145 pounds. People, no, that's a joke. If you're not watching the video, not a bodybuilder. I do push-ups occasionally, but that's mostly just because it's too hot to run. So I want to do something. But need to eat more. Need to figure out what I can do, some healthy, quick ways to get calories into my body. If you guys have any suggestions of like organic ways, not like a protein shake, not a processed thing, but if there's like very calorie-rich foods, eggs probably fit in that. But if you have any suggestions, let me know. Let me know what you're thinking on that. And also, I'll try this out. This is just a straight ripping of Ethan, good bud, who has a podcast as well. But he's been posing, putting his email out there, asking people to send questions. I don't have an email yet for the podcast, but if you want to shoot any questions into the pod, is kind of a little section I can go through to just answer whatever anybody asks. Send it via message on Instagram at Ben Dailey Comedy, BenDailey COMEDY, Ben Dailey Comedy. Just shoot me a DM on there with any questions, and I'll take a look. Maybe toss it out on the next pod. With that said, though, like I said, it's been a busy week. Doing this on Monday, because it's been a busy week. Getting ready to fly to Tulsa here in a few days for the Blue Whale Comedy Festival, which will be very fun. But just to go over some of the stuff I've done in the last week, I was out working through some new jokes, excited about some new jokes coming together. I feel more energetic on stage and able to be in the moment, and kind of combine that with some new joke ideas. I'm very excited about a new 10 or 15 minutes in the last few months to try to kind of build out my entire set to get just, more time in general. So with that said, went out to a decent amount of mics last week, and then I had the Rise Comedy Festival on Friday and Saturday, which was very fun. I did a show at Rise Comedy, which is a little like improv / stand-up theater, probably like an 80-seater. It's honestly, it's kind of an ideal spot for comedy, like a tight, small room, get people in there. Hosted a show on Friday, which was very fun. Hung around a little bit before that. They did a 7 o'clock and a 9 o'clock. I did the 9 o'clock. Hosted that, tried out kind of some of the newer stuff. And then on Saturday, did a show at Wide Right, which is like a bar a couple blocks away. That's Wide Right does a bunch of shows and open mics and different things. So it's a very big venue when it comes to the comedy scene here in Denver. But the show was very fun there. I got to close that show out, not based on any sort of merit. I think they randomized the order, so I just happened to get the last draw. But had a lot of fun. It was a room that you can get a lot of different vibes in that room. It can be chaotic, kind of very similar to just a lot of bars with noise. Sometimes it can be really good. Sometimes you get, like right before my set, the comic before me, there was a very, very drunk individual who came in and just like sat in the front and just started like murmuring to the comic, but not in any sort of conversational way to where you can kind of combat it and talk back. It was just kind of like they're in outer space and just ruining the show. So I was like, oh boy, okay, I guess I'll just have this guy for my whole set. But fortunately, he just came in and kind of ruined that guy's set for a couple minutes, and then got out of there. And then I went up and I was able to just do the jokes. It's one of those rooms where sometimes if you're just on the jokes, it's maybe not going to work or probably not going to work. You kind of have to be present and talk with the crowd. So I was thinking, okay, maybe I'll have to do that, which is fine. But I didn't have to. I was able to just do the jokes. People were attentive, listening, seemed to enjoy it. So that was great. Felt good. Enjoyed that. That was a good way to cap that off. So that was my Friday and Saturday. And like I said, getting ready to go out to do the Blue Whale Comedy Festival in Tulsa this next weekend. I'm very excited for that. There's some very funny people on the festival there. It'll be my second time in Tulsa. I went there last August, about a year ago, for the first time, and honestly, it's probably one of my favorite cities I visited. In general, I really enjoyed it. Obviously, going for a couple of days to any city, you're judging the city based on your tiny little miniature experience over a couple of days. So I'm not naive to the fact that that's not necessarily a full representation of what the city is, but I enjoyed it quite a bit. Looking forward to doing a show there, doing a show at a place called, I think, The Lowdown, which is pretty close to where I stayed last time. It's a couple blocks from the hotel we stayed in. We did last year a show. We rented out a theater called the Spotlight Theater, which was super fun. It was right off the river, right in the middle of Tulsa. And it's a 110-person theater, and we rented it out for like $250 on a Friday. And we were able to sell it out. That was our best show by far. A lot of the other shows on that run were one of those where you look at the other comics and you go, ooh, what? We drove a long way to do that, huh? Which all the shows that we did, it was funny, during that week, were sold very well. A lot of people came out. We made money. It was very successful in that sense, but sometimes you get on a string of shows that where people come out and they're just, I don't know if they don't understand comedy, they've never dealt with it before, maybe the heat, maybe you start going, is comedy even a thing? But Tulsa was the one show that was very fun, and doing a little theater like that was super cool. Especially being able to sell it out. It was a cool vibe, a cool area. The people there we got a decent mixture of, we did it, I think, as a clean show. And with a lot of clean shows, you get older demographics, but this one we got a good mix of kind of young to old. So it was great. It was a lot of fun. People enjoyed it. And then from there, we stayed downtown in a Holiday Inn Express, which pretty nice. When you're first starting out on the road, being able to stay in a hotel at all is kind of like a nice luxury rather than sleeping on a couch or I've tried sleeping in my car. That was not fun. But then you get downtown in a city and you're in a Holiday Inn Express. Pretty nice. Was still, sharing a queen bed with someone else, but pretty nice. There's a gym there. So excited to go back. Excited to go back to Tulsa. I wonder, it'll probably be hot and humid, I imagine. But it was very cool last time, so I'm looking forward to this time and meeting people at the festival and just doing a fun show and kind of hanging out, getting to see the lay of the land again, being there more than a day, being there a couple of days this time versus last year, just hanging out for the day. But that's what I got coming up this next weekend, and then I've got a couple local shows that I'll be producing over the next couple weeks, which I'm also excited for because it's been a minute since I've run multiple shows. I was running 4 or 5 monthly shows a year or two ago, and it just got very overwhelming. It was a lot of work, and it just took a toll on me. And ultimately, I want to do comedy. I want to write jokes. I want to perform jokes. I'm not interested in making it as a full-time producer / host. I want to do comedy. I get that, it's important for a lot of people, especially when you're starting out, to kind of run a show, understand how to run a show. You can help people coming out of town, help get people in your scene spots. It's certainly something that's helpful for learning and for networking, but it just got overwhelming. So I cut it down, but now I'm kind of ready to get a few more on board that hopefully are fun, to get more hosting experience again, and just get more stuff on the calendar and try to figure out marketing. Just help grow as a comedian. Don't want to overwhelm myself too much, but do want to flex that muscle of hosting, figure out how to get as good as possible at that, because that's obviously a very relevant skill set that helps you out, I think, in comedy, just in general, but also a lot of opportunities that hopefully I'll get in the future start at the host position, whether that's at clubs or, as I go out on the road. I'm going out next month doing a run throughout the Midwest. A lot of times when we do like a 3-man show, we'll each do 25 minutes or so. And a lot of times I'll go first. So I'm essentially hosting, but doing a much longer set, but still the host energy, kind of establishing what's going on, getting people to clap. That's all very relevant and stuff that it's good to understand the mindset and how to do that, to be able to get into your jokes in a more natural way and have people focused in and ready to laugh. So that's coming up next month. That'll be fun. We're doing a couple clubs throughout the Midwest. We're doing somewhere in Omaha, I think, and then we're doing Teehees in Des Moines, and then Boss Comedy Club in Sioux Falls, or South Dakota, the suburbs of Sioux Falls. But very excited for all of those. Haven't done the venue in Omaha, which is I'm blanking on right now. Haven't done Teehees, which seems to be like a very cool, almost like a Rise comedy, like kind of a black box theater, but with like a unique, just its own flavor. Kind of a cool vibe, looks like. And then Boss Comedy Club in South Dakota, we did that last year as well, and did 2 shows, which probably, if not the most fun, one of the most fun shows I've done on the road with the guys that I'm heading out with. So very excited to go back. We're going to do 1 clean show, 1 dirty show. So 1 clean show and 1 still pretty clean probably for me. Maybe a couple jokes that are a little PG-13, but it'll be pretty similar for me, I imagine. Probably just kind of a different crowd. The earlier crowd for the clean show, probably, people who want to see clean comedy, and then the other people are probably people who, I don't know if they necessarily, probably some of them might want to see some really filthy stuff, but for the most part, people who just aren't worried too much about the content. They just want to go out and laugh. So that'll be fun. This last week, I also, before the comedy festival, actually, I helped give notes to it was like a workshop kind of comedy thing where some newer comics did some jokes, and everybody kind of worked on giving feedback, and that was fun. That was a good exercise to go through. That was my first time giving feedback in that type of setup, kind of in a where people were looking to me and the other instructor for feedback. We've all done it. If you're doing comedy, you do it all the time. You have buddies that where you'll talk back and forth, and you'll give input and maybe tag suggestions, punchlines, different ways people can take their jokes. But that's just, as it comes up. If you see somebody on stage and you have a thought, maybe you give it to them, maybe you don't. This was, people would go up, and then it's like, let me tell you feedback. So I was curious going into it, like, am I going to be able to give good feedback, constructive feedback for everybody? Are there going to be some people who go up there and I go, yeah, what you did, I don't really have feedback other than what you did wasn't great. Don't do that again. Which honestly sometimes kind of is, like if a very new comic or somebody who has zero structure goes on stage and just rambles, it can be very easy to be like, look, I can't give you specific feedback other than you were rambling. You gotta, find the funny and really cut the fat. But everybody in this class was working towards jokes. They had, taken enough time to try to do the setup punch, and some better than others, but also everybody had enough structure there for me to feel like I could give constructive feedback, which was cool. It was cool to be able to give that feedback, but also it seemed very helpful for myself too, as you're talking about the different feedback and what could or couldn't be done, or different angles you could take, or different punchlines, adding tags. I think that certainly helped me as well, just as reminders of things to do, things to look for when it comes to joke structure, things like that. And honestly, I think I've said it before. I don't know if on here, but I know I've talked about it a lot with friends, and especially comedians. I love talking comedy in the ins and outs, jokes, structure, just all of it. Because I love it. I'm doing it all the time. I'm constantly trying to get better at it. But B, it reinforces a lot of these habits in my head, where like if I'm talking, I remember if I'm talking to people about whatever it is, joke structure, tags, any of it, it kind of helps reinforce in my head things that I need to do. I remember a year, maybe 2 years ago, Rocky Dale Davis, if you're not familiar with him, he's a very funny comedian. I wasn't very familiar with him, but I saw he put a special out that he recorded at Go Bananas Comedy Club in Cincinnati. And he put that out on YouTube for free. If you're looking for somebody funny, check him out, Rocky Dale Davis. And I watched that special, and every single joke and punchline he had 3, 4, 5 tags added to it. So he's like set up, getting to the punch, and then just ramming the laughs down your throat. And that was the first thing I watched where I remembered having it click in my head, oh, I need to write tags for every joke I have. And if you're not familiar, if you're not a comedian, you're listening to this, if you're not familiar with what a tag is, basically it's an extension to the punchline to keep people laughing. So with a joke, you do like setup and then you do a punchline. And then what I was doing in the past and what a lot of people do, especially if you're newer, is you do this build up, set up, and then you do the punchline, and then you just start a new joke. And all that momentum is now lost and you're now starting from scratch again. Whereas a tag, you build up, hit them with a punchline, they laugh, and then you hit them with a tag, which is basically just another punchline. You just boom, 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 and you keep that momentum going for as long as you can. So any joke you write, every joke you write, it's now embedded in my brain. And I remember talking about it, thinking, I can't believe I didn't utilize this or have this thought in my mind before, because everybody talks about, it's talked about all the time, punchlines, tags, in all contexts. It wasn't a new term to me. It wasn't a new philosophy, writing tags, but it wasn't until watching that it clicked in my brain that I need to be writing tags for every single joke. So that was like a big level up moment for me. I think I've talked about it before. I think we all have these level up moments, and a lot of times it's information that we've already received from other comics, or you already know, you've read about it, but you don't really understand or start utilizing it until just a certain point it clicks. Like when I first started, I wrote all these jokes, what I thought were jokes. A year in, everybody had told me throughout that year, underline the punchline. Where's the punchline? It wasn't until I was a year in that I actually went to underline punchlines and I realized I do not have punchlines. So that was a big level up moment for me, where it's like always underline the punchline, and if there's nothing there, then you need to change it, you need to eliminate it, you need to figure out how to add something. Same thing with the tags that I mentioned after watching Rocky Dale Davis. It was add a tag for every single joke. Because at the end of the day, comedy is subjective. I'm not saying that everything has to have 5 tags or whatever, but at the end of the day, a huge part of getting better as a stand-up comedian is being as funny as possible, getting people to laugh as often as possible. And a huge part of it, obviously, is like, how can I get them, maybe they giggle at some stuff, how can I get them to belly laugh at everything I do? But also a big thing too is momentum, and getting a laugh off the punchline and then keeping the momentum going with tags. So that's been a huge thing that's kind of been implemented in my writing process, is always have a tag. Always look for a tag, not just one, multiple. Now some people, I feel like I heard somebody say once, like, I have at least 8 tags for every joke, which is, that's crazy. If you're good enough to do that, good on you. That is unbelievable. But that's the cool thing about, tags as well, is that you can write all these tags, and if you have the crowd on your side, if you have the momentum, you can say 3, 4, 5 tags and keep them rolling. But sometimes you're going to be in a crowd. Maybe it's your fault. Maybe you're not being as funny. Maybe you're out of your element. Maybe it's a small crowd. Maybe the crowd hates you. Maybe there's noise in the background. There could be a million things, but maybe the punchline doesn't get much of a laugh, and then the first tag is kind of almost not a laugh at all. Then there's no reason to say the extra 7 tags. If those extensions, if the punchline or first tag didn't get a laugh, I wouldn't bother saying any more of those extensions, because they've already established they're not into the joke. So you can just not say them. That's fine. They're extensions to the punchline. They're not relevant necessarily to the story or to the joke. So they're, always write as many tags as you can. And if you have the momentum, roll with it. If you don't, you can pull back. So that's been a big thing that I've done. And looking back, it's also funny too, because in the very beginning of doing comedy, I didn't have tags for jokes. It would just be setup, punchline. And a lot of those quote unquote punchlines weren't punchlines or weren't good enough to get consistent laughs. So a lot of times the punchlines wouldn't get a laugh. So then what would happen, myself, and this is a very common thing that people talk about, especially in the open mic scene, but just in comedy in general, is having what they call a saver line, which essentially is something you can say to break the tension and maybe get a laugh if your punchline doesn't get a laugh. A very basic example of this is a very generic one. It's not a good one at all. But if you say, you just say some punchline, you get no laugh, and then you have kind of a thing in the back of your head where if it doesn't get a laugh, then you go, well, you guys didn't like that one. That's a very generic one. That's not the best example. But that's an example of saying something after a swing and a miss and maybe breaking the tension and having people laugh at that point. So a saver line. And it's funny looking back on that, because all a saver line is, now that I've started to understand punchline, tags, writing structure, gotten better at just understanding jokes in general, all a saver line is a tag. It's a tag, but it's a tag for a joke that didn't work in the first place. So it's not great to have a bunch of saver lines. You hear some people who literally none of their jokes work, or their jokes they work so infrequently that they have a saver line for basically every joke they have. And if that's you, if you're a comic who has that, that's probably not a good indication of your jokes and skill level. I've in the past had jokes where I almost knew for certain my punchline isn't going to get a laugh, but then I'll say this saver line of, oh, you guys didn't like that one, or whatever the case is, and that would get a laugh. And I would keep doing that joke because I'm like, well, the saver line gets a laugh. But then I started realizing it's like, that's not good enough. If your punchline isn't working and then the only laugh you're getting is you acknowledging that your punchline didn't work, that's not a joke. Don't do that joke anymore. And in the beginning, look, most comics will have stuff like that as you're building out jokes in time and understanding how structure works and maybe getting opportunities to do longer time, and you just don't have that time in really good jokes yet. That'll happen. It's fine. But I think it's important to be aware that you shouldn't settle for that. Like I used to have a joke about having Lyme disease, and oh man, I don't even know if I can remember the joke exactly. So it's part of a joke about having Lyme disease and how when I had Lyme disease, I had to get my bone marrow checked, which involved like a big needle going into my hip bone, and how the doctor struggled to get it in. And at one point, she literally stopped and goes, wow, your bones are so hard. And I comment in the joke basically how be like, you're a doctor. How did you not? Yeah, they're bones. Like that's something everybody learns in like the first grade. And then I would do examples of what it'd be like. That's like one of the first things people learn in first grade. Like the 3 things you learn in first grade are don't talk in the hallway, bones are hard, and then I would say, as the quote unquote punchline, never poop in a stall without a door. And I'll tell you what, that almost never got a laugh. if it got anything, it usually got people going, ugh, kind of like, what? Why is he talking about that? And so then embedded in the joke, my savor line for that would be, if they didn't give much reaction, I'd go, oh, you guys must have gone to nice schools, huh? My school didn't have doors on the stalls in elementary school. And then that would maybe break the tension and get a little bit of a laugh. But again, that's one that I kind of did enough times to go, that's not good enough. I shouldn't settle for a joke that's not a joke, and then just getting a giggle off of the fact that I'm acknowledging that wasn't funny, or that, this isn't relatable to you guys because you must have gone to good schools or whatever. But when 99 times out of 100 people aren't laughing at it, it's like, I don't think it's it's not a funny joke. Don't say that anymore. So I can't even remember what I replaced it with, because that Lyme disease joke is, it's a decent joke. It's a longer joke, and it's not as kind of joke heavy, but there are some parts in the joke that will get like bigger pops, and I think for that reason I've kept it. It's all, it's also something very relevant to me and in my life, but probably a joke that I should take a look at to try to get tighter, maybe expand out. But either way, yeah, there's the ramble on tags and punchlines and savor lines and joke writing. I enjoy people will ask if I have like a comic friend that I write with, or other people will ask like, what do you do to write? I don't write with others almost ever. I'm not opposed to it. I wouldn't mind doing it, but I just haven't. And if you're a comic out there and you want to write together, let me know. I wouldn't mind bouncing ideas off of each other. The one thing that I will say is, because I've done some of these, it's not like a one-on-one thing, but it'll be like an open mic where it's a workshop style, so you kind of give feedback to each other. I think everybody struggles with this, but I don't like giving feedback, and I struggle giving feedback. Again, back to what I was talking about earlier, when people have zero structure, they're just rambling. Because at that point, it's like, well, I can't give you an alternative punchline or extra tags or whatever. It's just like, you just said a bunch of things that didn't get laughs. And so kind of all I can say is like, don't do that again. But if people have it structured out and go, here's a punchline, any suggestions, any thoughts on tags, any thoughts on an extension to that, then, I can kind of give input there. So I wouldn't mind putting some jokes together that I'm working on, having somebody else do that, and then kind of really just looking at like, hey, can you look at what I've already worked out and tell me, how can I make this better? Or can I change this? But that, maybe I'll do some more of that moving forward. I got a bunch of kind of half-baked ideas that are in the structure of comedy, but not the funniest. They're getting giggles instead of bigger laughs. And ultimately, like I said before, you want to get a bunch of big laughs. So that's the struggle with comedy. A lot of things you think of get minimal laughter or no laughter. And you're like, all right, well, how can I make similar structure but saying certain words that make your brain tell your gut to ha-ha, exhale, make noises out of your mouth. With that said, I've got a couple minutes left here. I'm going to talk about a couple books that I've been working through. Again, before I end, if you guys do want to pose any questions, have any thoughts, just want to mention anything, shoot a DM to my Instagram at Ben Dailey Comedy. I'll go through those as they come through and talk about them. If you have questions about comedy, thoughts about maybe a scene you're in, or your writing structure, style, how you write, how you edit, do you write on stage? Do you write at home? Are you a one-liner comic? Are you a conversational storyteller? Just, anything like that. send it my way at Ben Dailey Comedy. With that said, got a couple books here that I'm working through. One, I might have mentioned it on the last podcast, but John Steinbeck, I got a couple of his books, and I'm reading The Wayward Bus. It's I'm probably 50 pages in. It's maybe 250, 300 pages. It's, I think, his first novel after The Grapes of Wrath. So I think it was a pretty highly anticipated book. I'm not far enough in to give an opinion on it, but I will say I learned a new word. I jotted it down, discommode, which means it's a verb to inconvenience. I'm sorry to discommode you, but could you bring me a menu? It's funny because in the context I was learning it, it was like somebody was staying in somebody else's hotel room, and the person was like, "Hey, when are you going to be finished? Because I have to use the bathroom." And then the person was like, "I'm sorry to discommode you." So like in my head, I was like, like commode, toilet. It was but it has nothing to do with commodes. It's to inconvenience somebody or something, to discommode. So there's your vocabulary word for the day. I also bought, on the suggestion of a comic that was on the Rise Comedy Festival, he mentioned a couple of books that were good that he'd read recently, and I just went ahead and bought them right away. I got Rick Rubin's The Creative Act, A Way of Being. It's more of a coffee table read. It's like a page or two chapters that are just on a specific topic about creativity, which is very cool. I've only read a few pages, but Rick Rubin is a very philosophical, interesting individual. I know him. I've seen clips on social media, but I know him via mostly as like the producer for the Red Hot Chili Peppers, a bunch of their albums. So I've gotten to know him a little bit through that, but seeing him in other ways, I see how he has become so successful, whether it's producing or just creative projects. You listen to him talk and read the book, and you go, oh, he's tapped into understanding creativity in a way that a lot of people don't understand. So that's pretty cool. And then I got another one called Big Magic, Creative Living Beyond Fear. Have not started this one yet. It's by Elizabeth Gilbert, the author of Eat, Pray, Love. But the comic who recommended these told me that the premise of this is basically that creativity and jokes and things like that are kind of, it's not that anybody can do it. Anybody can be creative. It's not your own thoughts. It's out kind of just in the universe. And these thoughts will like kind of come like a bubble, and you'll just like receive them. And then that's how you create things. I disagree with that, but it'll be interesting to read. I do think there's a portion of that that's relevant as far as, I don't think that when I'm coming up with jokes, I'm opening my mind and having this external thing that could go to anybody land on me. I think, though, that anybody can be creative. It just takes you understanding how to kind of get in that creative space and allowing yourself to get to depths of your brain and creativity that maybe you don't access as often or repress or whatever at other times. But I think anybody has that capability. I don't think it's necessarily you're catching things that other people could catch. Like if I'm sitting here and I got the idea and you just missed it, buddy, who's sitting beside me. I don't think that's the case necessarily. But with that said, I'm going to end the podcast there. If you guys have any book recommendations that I should look into, let me know. If you want to send any questions, comments, thoughts to my Instagram for the next podcast at Ben Dailey Comedy. But I'll end it there. Thanks so much for listening this week, and I'll see you guys again next week.